Hi there. Right, this is part 2 of the Temu quilt or quilt cover. I believe over across the pond in the States you call them comforters, I'm not sure. But we have the quilts with a cover that goes over the top, and it's like a big inner pillow. It's just plain white cover that goes over the top, and it usually has poppers or a zip or some sort of fasteners along the bottom, and then the cover comes off so it can be washed. So they're washed sort of usually, well, my ones are washed every week. So I thought with the Temu blocks, instead of making up a quilt, which would we call them eider downs over here? I'm just thinking, would we call them eider downs? A quilt which goes over the bed is, yeah, they would get used, but they're not really used because we have this quilt that we sleep under. And we wouldn't necessarily use a quilt. We wouldn't necessarily use a quilt like this one here to sleep under. So it's so what I've decided with all my Temu Japanese fabric squares that I've done, I am making a cover to go over a quilt that will go in the guest room. So I've done a bit of calculating and worked out, but I'm just hoping my calculations are right. Done a bit of calculating and worked out, that what was it, my blocks are going to come out at, they're now at 7.5 inches, so it's 1/4 of an inch seam allowance each side, so they will be 7-inch blocks. And I haven't written it down, but I did have the measurements of what a double quilt cover is. I bought a plain white quilt cover, which I have now cut up. And that is what I'm using for my sashing in between the blocks. So I calculated I needed, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks to go across the way with the sashing in between. The sashing I've cut is 4.5 inches, allowing again for a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, so that gives me a 4-inch sashing between the blocks. And also there's my little diagram. It probably doesn't mean anything to you, but the sashing going at the bottom of the blocks will be a long strip, and in between it will be the little 7.5 inch by 4.5 inch strips. So basically they're like that. And let me find a whole one because I've got them all laid out here. Where are we? Right, so this is a whole one. This is a whole strip which has been put together to fit across the whole quilt, and then in between I have got a whole white strip. So that is what I'm putting together today, is these strips. And then for the bottom edge, the very bottom sashing, the strip that I've kept, which has come off, I bought a plain white Egyptian cotton quilt set, and so of course it's got the poppers along the bottom, so I've kept that with the poppers intact. That will be the last one to go on across the bottom, and that will marry up then with the whole piece, which is, hang on, let me grab it. Oh, where have you gone? I've got pillowcases with it as well, and I've got enough blocks over, so I might do some decoration on the pillowcases. This is the whole quilt top. So I separated the top from the bottom. It's got the opposite poppers on, And so once I've completed this top, it will get machined to this one, leaving the bottom opening with the poppers, and I should be able to put a quilt inside. That is the plan. So I'm at the stage now where I'm just putting all these blocks together in strips, and I'm going to machine the strips to the white sashing, and then hopefully it will all be ready to come together. So anyway, that is what I'm doing at the moment, and I'm just so my little blocks, I'm just taking the ears off. So this is part 2. I did show part 1 of how I made these blocks, and they're just done from they're just a magic square done from fabric. So I'm just cutting off the little ears, and they're just getting machined to each side of the small bits of sashing which are going between the blocks. So, and that is all there is to it. This is a very, very, very simple put together quilt cover. I did contemplate doing a quilt, but I thought no, I'm doing a quilt cover because it is of more use to us and it's just a lot more practical. So I've got everything cut in bundles for what I need, and after I've done this pile, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more piles to do. Then I can machine them together, and then that will be the top finished. Right, all the strips are machined up, so now I've just got to put them together into one big piece. So I'm gonna, it's come over all overcast outside. I was going to go out there and do a bit of clearing in the garden, but it's become very cold and overcast, so I'm going to stay here in my sewing room and carry on. I've wound my bobbins up. Strips are all ready in order that they're going to be sewn, so I better get started. Right, I've put all the top together, so as you can see it with the sashing in between, and the strip with the poppers is at the bottom. And so now I just have to reattach the underneath part. I shall give it a press first, attach the underneath part, and then that's it. It's all completed, and the quilt cover is all finished. So I'm quite happy with that. And yeah, it's all done apart from the sashing, but all the blocks I've done from Temu fabrics, and yeah, they stitch up perfectly fine. So there, I've got some blocks left over, so I am going to, that isn't creased by the way, I did press it. I'm deliberating about what to do with some pillowcases now, to make them match in with the quilt. I don't want to do the same sort of design, I want to do something different, but right now I'm happy with the quilt. So that's the end of my Temu quilt. I'll put the link down below for part 1 if you want to catch up on that. So thank you very much for watching me, and now time to get on for another project.